The Unfortunates is the name of the piece. The Unfortunates comes from a song called The Unfortunate Rake, which then later was known as the St. James Infirmary Blues and has been passed down since before we can even trace it from England and from Europe over to America, and then spread into sort of the folklore and folk music of the American tradition, and then later became a blues tune and it's played as a jazz tune. But that story was originally told by soldiers who were at war, and they would sing this song on the high seas, we imagine. Well, our play begins with soldiers singing this song to each other to steel themselves against their inevitable death. They're being kept as prisoners, and in that jail cell they begin to invoke this song to muster courage in each other. And then as they do sing it together in harmony, the story of that song comes to life. And within that story we meet the legendary character of Big Joe McKinney and his one time and then eventually long lost love. So you'll see a world of soldiers, and then from that world is born the story of that song.
And that song takes us into a world called the Blooniverse, which is a place influenced by comic books, like Creepy and Eerie and The Goon, Jack Kirby's artwork, Bernie Wrightson's artwork, that kind of stuff. But it's a world that's populated by characters and both real and imaginary from the world of blues and Americana. And it's a world that we're creating right now.
And so much of that is fueled in that same way by the music and shaping of that. You know, it's rooted in blues and Americana and roots music, and travels really the journey of where blues has started and branches off and meshes with jazz and with country and with roots and Americana, and then into more of the more ballad and rock and into hip hop music. And it's just really trying to tell the story of the overlapping of American music and how it is such a tangible and heroic thing that has existed for many communities, throughout the last century, and how it has become so much of it is songs of hope and songs of hope in the midst of trouble. And so through that we just get to take that journey of Big Joe and of these soldiers and how they find hope in the songs that they've carried with them through the war, and really the theme that we continue to go back to is not losing that song, letting that song tell your story even in the midst of pain and sorrow, and seeing how that holds you up.
As Casey's talking about the way in which the music pulls from American music throughout the 20th century, I would say the world of the play similarly pulls from iconic American images, events, characters throughout the 20th century. Vaudeville being an example. We've, in design, been looking at all of these World War I propaganda posters. There are all of these characters that are coming out of both blues songs, Americana songs, iconic American cartoons. All of that is blended into this imaginary world of the music that grows out of this song. And I would say the story as well, in that way, is pulling from American myth, American legend. And I think in that way, the piece itself feels just deeply born out of American tradition.
Yeah. Big Joe has some physical limitations. He has giant fists that make it easy for him to be a big, scary, imposing bouncer, but make it hard for him to do things like hold on to somebody and love somebody, because all he knows how to do is hit and roll dice and be the big, scary guy, holding things down in King Jesse's bar.
Exactly, and it's the story of how we have to learn to let go of our vices to embrace something less clutchable, like love. You know what I mean? And therein lies his redemption. If he can, if we can overcome fear and isolation to believe in a genuine connection and a grace and a community, then we're redeemed in that from feeling like we're on our own team with our fists up.
Yeah.
And he's really the hero of this play, and he's surrounded though by these complicated, extreme, fascinating characters like King Jesse, who you might say is more of an anti-hero, is the man who sells vice, but at the same time he's the one who took Big Joe out of the gutter and gave him a job. And so I think there are some fascinating characters in that way, but then also in a comic book kind of way, there are out and out villains. Rami's plays in a way all of the villains, and so like a comic book, the villain keeps appearing in different guises but always with the same sort of dangerous force underneath. And so in that way there's a very clear black and white setup of the villain versus the hero in Big Joe, and that's part of the way in which the characters in this play are very much archetypes, and you can find them in most American myths and folklores, and I think that's one of the things that ultimately makes it more moving, because it is our story. It is all of our story in the way that we want this music to be everyone's music, and I hope as audiences come, they will, feel the accessibility and inclusiveness of that aspect of the piece.